Welcome to Old New Borrowed Blue, a show about Evertonians' favourite things about Everton, favourite players, stuff like that. This week, I am joined by Paddy Boyland to go through his favourite old player, so favourite former player, new favourite current player, borrowed favourite loan player, and blue just general favourite Evertonian. Paddy, how are you?
Good. How are things?
Yeah, all good. Nice to be kicking off this new show. So we'll get straight into it. So, old, who is your favourite former player?
How many times has somebody said this to you in recent weeks?
It's only the second one I've done, and Dave
Right.
didn't say it, so there you go.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm imagining a lot
Um,
of people will say it though.
yeah. So it's Leighton Baines. Um, I grew up. My first Everton teams were towards the end of the Walter Smith era, so it was a pretty dreary time to
It
be
was grim, yeah.
an Evertonian. And like obviously the common joke was that he'd play a team full of centre halves if he had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Effectively, it'd be a back four or five, all of centre halves. Reminded me a little bit of Carlo Ancelotti's time, actually, with the centre backs, albeit we didn't have James Rodriguez. So that was quite bleak. And obviously, David Moyes comes in. There's still a fear of relegation, but he very quickly stabilises, as we know. And all my Everton heroes growing up as an Evertonian were from that era, more so than the one before. So Cahill, Arteta, Jagielka, obviously having retired fairly recently, conjured loads of memories of him. And in particular his duels with Fernando Torres when he was playing against Liverpool in those derby games. But I think it has to be Baines, and I think it's Baines because he's just kind of this all-encompassing thing for Evertonians and being a local lad come good. He listened to all the same music as I did at the time and was hanging around with the bands that I would have wanted to hang around with.
Yeah, this was the thing about him, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so he transcended football, and I always like that with football. As we'll speak about another one later down the line who does that. Um, so I kind of admired him for that. I was a bit jealous of him for that. But as a player, I would say he's the best player I've seen in my time watching Everton so far. And there have obviously been some that have gone on to maybe bigger and better things. Rooney, Lukaku, players like that. But just for sheer excellence in his position as a left back, getting into, I think it was two PFA teams of the year at a time when the Premier League was stacked with really good left
Yeah,
backs.
yeah, it
Uh,
was.
you have Ashley Cole, obviously, famously, Patrice Evra, Gail Clichy, various others. But for him to make it into those teams twice on two separate occasions, I think shows just how good he was.
Yeah,
Um,
and the mad thing is, when we signed him, he couldn't get in the team.
no,
So you say about Walter Smith playing four or five centre
uh,
backs. We had Julian Lescott, a centre back playing left back, keeping him out. Which I mean, Lescott did well there,
he
but when you
did.
think about it, it's insane, isn't it?
Let,
So,
let, it was really strange watching Lescott in that role because it was ill-fitting. But he had that Jared Branthwaite at left back thing where because he
yeah,
was big and had this physicality about him, he just shuffled down the line relentlessly. And it would look odd. Again, Dan Burns, another one, it would look odd, but it was somehow effective. And I think for Moyes, a little bit like with Sean Dyche, and there are many parallels, I think, between the two. But for Moyes, it's all about trust. And sometimes it's, I'll play this player out of position over another purely because I believe they're going to do what I want and they're going to carry out my instructions. And you almost had to earn his faith over a period of time. And kind of Baines came in as a diminutive left back who'd obviously played for Wigan. So I suppose he had to earn his corn.
he wasn't cheap though, was he? When
Um,
comparatively anyway, then I think he cost 5 million up front, wasn't
Yeah, yeah. And
it?
I remember, I think it was Sunderland that were kind of big in for
Yeah,
him at the time as well. So there was a question mark as to whether he'd come for Everton, and Everton sort of, in the end, gazumped Sunderland to get him to Goodison. As a Kirby lad, I think that was probably an easy decision for him to make in the end. Um, but just the excellence, the sheer excellence over an extended period of time, the iconic goals and celebrations and moments. I mean, I've got several, I'm sure you have as well. But I love that image of him kind of jumping in sheer joy, kid-like, after he scored against Chelsea. That really late goal in the cup away
yeah.
at Chelsea. the free kick to take it to penalties, and Everton subsequently won. But he jumps up, and again, like it's a sense of euphoria that you probably get. It's the same response you get from a fan.
Yeah.
And I love the kit as well.
Oh, the cream one.
Yeah.
With the navy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. That was one of those high moments from Baines, wasn't it? I mean, there was a lot, as you say. He was, probably the best in Europe in that position at least one stage. And I think it's interesting that you touch upon the fact that he's not your cliched footballer, let's say. So another one that springs to mind, he's very much like Pat Nevin in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Left-sided player, diminutive, and like things that other footballers don't really like music for a start. But yeah, he seems to go one further, and he knocked about with Arctic Monkeys and things like that.
Yeah.
He sort of became a mate of theirs. One thing that surprised me, and you've got more sort of insider knowledge, definitely than I have anyway. Has it surprised you that he looks like he could be going into management? Because I thought he'd be one of those players who, once he's finished, do you know what? Football was a good career, enjoyed it, but I've got other stuff I want to do.
Yeah, I have to be honest, it would have done 2 or 3 years ago. So when he retired, and I suppose even before he retired, there was a general sense from what we were hearing that he'd fallen out of love with the professional game. That it just become a bit of a drag for him, and kind of these grueling sessions, relentless games. Everton weren't in a great place at the time, obviously. And I think it can be easy to fall out of love in those circumstances with the thing you've done for such a long period of time. I think everyone then expected him to have almost, I suppose, what would you call a sabbatical, where he just goes off and does something completely different. And I think for him, that was mainly kind of spending time with family and being around the city and seeing friends and going to good gigs and all that kind of stuff. So it was a bit of a surprise when he started being bandied around even for the Everton under-18s job. And I still think he's a bit of an anachronism in that role, insofar as how many interviews has he done?
Yeah, it's true.
Since he became Everton under-18s manager, I can count maybe 2 or 3 with club channels over the whole of his time. And that's unusual. Even on under-18 level, you get media requests from people like ourselves, from other outlets. There'd be a ton of people queuing up to interview Leighton Baines on anything.
Yeah.
Never mind just Everton under-18s and how his coaching's going. But I think he's got an aptitude for it. Like you say, a little bit like Pat Nevin, he's a thinker, and it's quite clear early on that he looked at the game in a certain way, and he would develop with teammates ways, almost like unique routes to goal. And one of the things that really annoyed me kind of late is this suggestion that fullbacks and what they're doing now are almost reinventing the game.
Oh, no. It's, yeah. I mean, for me, the fullback role has always been, all right, first and foremost, you're a defender, but you get forward any chance you can.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And there was the sort of thing, wasn't there, where Liverpool reinvented this fullback thing a few years ago, and Baines
because they got assists.
Yeah,
it's like we'll go and look at his assist record.
Yeah, it's unreal, isn't it? Yeah, I mean that's the thing as well. He, unfortunately for him and us, he's not got the trophies, but the stats he's got to back everything up just to say that he was one of the best.
But I also think like you get these kind of blind comparisons between what he did and what others did in more successful teams. It's like, well, yeah, if you put players in better teams with better strikers in front of them and with kind of more kind of elaborate passing midfielders, of course they're going to do better. I think people forget that at times Everton didn't always carry a huge amount of goal scoring prowess during Moyes' time. It would often be a Cahill or Fellaini coming from midfield to get these crosses.
Times when we didn't play with the striker at all. I mean, I don't think we had one for a couple of years, did we? It was Cahill and Fellaini. So
it seemed like every time we play Aston Villa, it would be Cahill or Fellaini from during that run. But even this kind of sense that fullbacks don't overlap, they underlap, as Gary Neville terms it. They come inside.
Yeah.
And the winger goes on the outside. I mean, Leighton Baines and Stephen Pienaar were doing that.
Yeah.
However many years ago now.
Yeah, we were.
And doing it really well. I think I remember a game where Baines did that. Was it against Forest? There's another one against Newcastle where he kind of came inside off the line and was fed in the channel. and just kind of arrowed shots in. And he had that about him. I think he was a better defender as well than people gave him credit for. And I think he was harshly treated by England too.
Oh, he was. Well, there was that famous thing. There was the 2010 World Cup where he sort of just, I think he made a sort of bit of a throwaway comment that he liked to spend time with his family.
Yeah.
And that was interpreted as, oh, you don't want to go to the World Cup then? All right, we'll take Stephen Warnock.
We'll take Stephen Warnock, which, and I know, I mean, subsequently he's spoken about that, hasn't he, and how that was almost manipulated to fit an agenda. And it's probably why, in truth, and I say this as a member of the media, he lost faith in the media.
Yeah.
Because he was aware that some people in the game are out for a quick line or wanting to spin a line. That might be why he doesn't do much with people now. But the point I've made repeatedly, going back to his managerial career, is that at some point, if he wants to go down that path, he's going to have to.
And I do think if Duncan Ferguson can do it, Leighton Baines can't, because famously he would never talk to anyone. I don't even think he gave many interviews at Everton when he was there in the mid-90s as a player.
Wouldn't you want Ferguson as like the number two, the enforcer, like the Archie Knox of the piece?
Yeah.
With Baines as the kind of the one that sits just above the manager with the overall authority.
I can see that. We can dream, can't we? We can dream of that in the future.
It'd be lovely. It is nice. It is nice to see that generation, I suppose, of Evertonians now going on, and Duncan at a low level, admittedly, with Inverness, but doing well. And it also starts to make me feel really old, because you get the players that I grew up watching as a kid now going into management.
Mate, wait till you have an Everton manager who's younger than you. That's when you really feel old, trust me.
It's not far away.
Right, good solid choice for your old player there. We'll move on to new. So who is your favourite current player? I said to Dave in the last one I did, it's nice to actually have the opportunity to say, I actually like some of these lads now.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I actually struggled for that reason.
Yeah.
And as you say, it perhaps wouldn't have been like that in previous years. So I kind of toyed with James Tarkowski as a stalwart who always stands up, is always available with media, even after a defeat. He's one of the few that holds his hand up and wants to speak. And I also just love the fact that he's there shoving people at the end of games when players need to be shoved.
Yeah.
We asked him about one of the scraps against Newcastle recently and why he in particular got involved. And he said, because I like to push people. I admired that honesty and that clarity. Loads of them had kind of a lot of admiration for what Jordan Pickford's done. Don't think Everton would be a Premier League outfit without him. Mm-hmm. And I'm intrigued to see who other people pick. But I've gone for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And again, goes back to the point about Leighton Baines, where he's got this life away from football. And I think he's a bit more maligned for it than Baines, because it deviates a little bit more from the norm than Baines. But I've never, ever really had a problem with that. And actually, I think players should be encouraged to just be themselves effectively. Yeah. And maybe we've got a bit of a retrograde culture in British football at times.
Yeah, definitely.
What's allowed and what's not.
I mean, if you look at the Baines example, right? You like indie music, that's a bit weird. You like clothes, get out. It's like, you want to dress well and listen to good music. You got no place here, mate. It's very strange. It's really strange.
I thought it was particularly odd. He did a Monday Night Football for Sky, and I thought he was really quite good, actually, kind of a promising pundit. And you go on Twitter, and all the comments underneath are like, "Why aren't you in the gym working?"
It's when he was injured, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's like 9 o'clock at night. He doesn't have to be in from 7 a.m. until 9 in the evening.
And it's like people think there is, as you say, there's no life outside football. And, when you think about it, footballers, they have a lot of free time.
Yeah.
They have a lot of free time on their hands. So the fact that he's filling it with, doing photo shoots, doing modelling, it's better than being sat in a hotel playing on an Xbox for 7 hours after training. So
that's a very good point, because there are countless examples of players now in particular getting big into the gaming culture and staying up until 2, 3 in the morning, not being able to get to sleep, and then I probably zoned out the next day.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, who's to say who does or doesn't do that? But I think that was the kind of the off-field persona with Calvert-Lewin was just a part of this for me, and maybe one of the differentiating factors from other players. The other is I think I'm more invested in his story than with others too, purely because of the arc we've been on,
Yeah.
where he's had this relentless stream of injuries. In truth, it probably at various points has looked like he would never get back. And now has put together his most sustained run in the side since he first got injured, I
Yeah.
suppose. I think Dyche deserves a lot of credit for that. And he will get the credit for that. You see it in the media. But maybe the thing that's written less is just how much Dominic's had to do to get back.
Yeah. True.
And the steps he's done. I mean, we've written it ourselves. Like he's pretty fastidious. He works hard in the gym. He's obviously body conscious. He's got his own nutritionist, all that kind of stuff. So he tries to do all the right things.
Yeah.
It's just a case he's been unlucky, and in some very early cases in his injuries, badly managed.
Yeah.
Managers or whoever else. And I'm not naming any names, but maybe someone that used to live on the Wirral.
I think he still does.
Yeah.
I'll try and find out what his house is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You can't underestimate the toll that takes on a player who just wants to play football. And this is the thing, because he's got like these other interests outside of the game, people automatically assume, well, he doesn't want to play football anyway. He'd sooner be punting about doing this. But, as a lad who wants to play football, he's very good at playing football. And if you're getting injury after injury, the toll that must take on you mentally, it's, so Sean Dyche, as you say, gets a lot of credit for putting the player ahead of his own sort of personal advancement. Because as we've seen with other managers, the easiest thing to do when a player's 70% fit, throw him in because it's mine on the line here. And that's what they worry about. Dyche hasn't. But then,
Dom has said that himself, hasn't he? He said that at times he was maybe a bit too keen to get back into the side, and that's led to relapses and re-injuries. It's quite interesting. I interviewed Tom Davis last year when he was, I suppose, already on the way out at Everton. He knew his time was up, and he knew he needed to go somewhere else and play. And he said that, I think it was Davis, he kind of effectively what he said was that a lot of us have this stuff outside of football, and it's a coping mechanism. It's like that's the other part of our life, and we need that separation between work and play effectively.
Yeah.
And if we take a step back and take the money out of it, which should be irrelevant here, but we all need that. I need it sometimes to just be able to completely switch off from, in my job as an Everton reporter, Everton not being very good. Sometimes I have to. So I think we should get that, and I think we should maybe be a bit more empathetic. Danny Donachie, the former head of Everton Medical, obviously has spoken quite a lot about Dom, and he'd worked with him in his time, and he was always very clear. He works hard and he wants to do the right things, and he's just been a bit unlucky and a bit mismanaged along the way.
Yeah.
But as a footballer, I think when he's really on it, he's got a lot more strings to his bow than maybe some people give him credit for too. There's a lot of discussion about Dyche's tactics in the game against Fulham in the Carabao Cup quarter-final, for example. And I think they almost neuter and negate some of Dom's abilities. And if you just bang the ball up to somebody for 70, 80 minutes against a 6'5" defender, it's a pretty thankless task.
Yeah.
I think like we've seen him against Brighton last season. He was brilliant at running the channels and cutting the ball back for Decore and McNeil in particular. Amazing leap, the best leap of any Everton player I've seen, with Tim Cahill a close second.
Yeah.
And he scored some great goals. I just think they need to be careful now. Like that for me on Tuesday night was one of his weakest performances since he came back into the team. And my fear is that there's just this run of games that's relentless. It's grueling. I think it's 5 in 2 weeks, effectively.
Yeah.
Give or take. And I think with somebody like him, you have to manage him. Not just to keep him away from injury, but I think just to keep him top shape.
Yeah, I think
And
he is.
we've got an option now.
Yeah,
We've got someone there on the bench. So I honestly, I said to people before the game, I'd probably played better on Tuesday night and just given Don a little bit of a breather.
yeah. I think it's going to have to come to that, isn't it? Because you've got to keep him mentally sharp as well, and he's starting to look like a player who needs a goal now.
Yeah,
Because when a striker goes a few games without one, that's when the starters go, "You're right, you're playing all right, but you need a goal." And then when it sort of drops off a little against Fulham, you kind of think, okay, maybe come out for a game. Because as well, it's getting to that stage where he's going to be playing and he's going to know 60, 65 minutes he's coming off. Which when you're starting a game with that in your head,
yeah,
it automatically affects the way you're going to play as well.
yeah.
So yeah, I think probably need to mix it up. But
Just a little bit of more cautious management, maybe.
yeah,
And again, Dyche's done a brilliant job so far with him, getting him back there. But
yeah,
some of the goals he's got him in, like the one in the COVID derby at Goodison, where he gets on the end of a
that
cross
leap.
to Dean and just towers above them and puts it back in. That's like him at his best for me.
Yeah,
Um, and I think we all love a headed goal, don't we? At Goodison, we all want that from his number nine. He follows in a tradition of loads of really good Everton number nines when it comes to heading the ball.
yeah. And also though, you look on the flip side that the last goal he scored for Everton, that one at West Ham,
Yeah.
that turn and finish was brilliant. So yeah, he's scored 50 and 194 appearances. So,
Very quickly, the other thing about him as well, and this is a media perspective more than anything else, rather than the fan one. He's the one. He's one of the ones you want after the game in the mix zone, as they call it,
okay.
where the players come through and journalists can ask whoever questions. Like if you get Dom, you know you're going to get intelligent, articulate answers,
Yeah,
and you do from others, by the way. It's not just him, but it's clear he thinks about the game. He speaks really well, and speaks with honesty as well. So if you get Dom in the mix zone, you've done well. And we've spoken to him a few times already this season. He's always good. He's always good value. So I appreciate that, because we live in an era in which they all get media trained and they're
yeah.
all taught not to say anything, aren't they?
Basically, yeah, that's what media training is.
So, like the amount of times I've scrapped bits of interviews from what I've actually produced when it's gone out. I
Yeah,
take every game as it comes. I'll play wherever the manager wants me. Focusing on the next game, all that kind of stuff. We haven't set a target for this season. We'll see how it goes. All that kind of stuff. It's just like you can't write a headline on that. You can't write a piece on that. It doesn't mean anything really. But with somebody like him, I think he's obviously got his own mind, and he gives you a kind of an honest, articulate answer. So I appreciate that as a member of the media.
yeah. We'll move on then to someone who's famous for their interviews in another way, not such a positive way while he was at Everton.
Yeah,
So your favourite, and you know what, I'd actually forgotten again that we got him on loan first, but
yeah.
your favourite borrowed player is
Romelu Lukaku.
what a shout.
Yeah, I mean, I toyed with Landon Donovan for his impact, but I think this show is all about moments and memories and kind of leaving a mark. Donovan obviously did in some ways, but I couldn't actually think of many moments.
Yeah,
He only scored a couple of goals, and I think one of them was against Hull. Um, and he left a mark. He left his imprint, but I don't know. It was easy with Lukaku. Like even his entrance as an Everton loan player, he came off the bench against West Ham in the game in which Bain scored 2 free kicks.
yeah,
He scored a header and isn't able to celebrate because he's been absolutely clattered by the defender and goes down in a heap. And probably in different circumstances now, he'd have been in a concussion protocol and he wouldn't have played for the
yeah,
rest of the game. But it was a really brave header. Not always typical of a Lukaku goal. But I just loved watching him in that season. It was such an exciting time to be an Evertonian, the most exciting time. I wasn't a journalist covering the club at that point, so I experienced it from that fan perspective. So everything was giddy excitement and kind of untamed expectation.
yeah,
Playing in a free-flowing side with Barkley and Dale Afeu, and it was kind of this young, dynamic, vibrant front three, wasn't it? And they looked like they were going places. So so many goals in that run. I think he scored 2 against Newcastle as well. Had the dreads at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say there was nothing quite like you say that header against West Ham. Did he score one against Liverpool as well? Header. Yeah,
A great header at the Gladys Street, and at
like the 3-3.
that
There was
point,
nothing quite like the dreadlock Lukaku throwing a
no,
header.
no, I was going to say he should have kept them.
Yeah,
He should have kept them. He had other fantastic seasons at Everton. But again, that kind of iconic image of him with his dreads, powering past defenders, and the header against Liverpool was great. Not many people speak about it because of what happened afterwards and what happened subsequently with Sturridge's goal at the end. But he scored to put Everton, was it 2-2 and then 3-2?
Yeah.
And was brilliant in that derby game. I always think people pigeonholed him incorrectly. People always thought he was this, and even Rom himself has been guilty of this. People look at his size and thought, you're a big battering ram striker, and we have to play the ball into you like we did with Victor and Ichibi, and you've got to spin everyone.
Yeah.
But all his best moments, particularly in that season before he got bulkier, he was thin, streamlined, and he was a sprinter.
Yeah.
He was the guy that you'd play the ball into over the top, in behind, and he would just roast players for pace. I think one of his other goals, not during the loan spell, but against Manchester City, where he picked the ball up effectively on the halfway line, and he had, and just sped past 2 or 3, including Clichy. And that was an amazing goal. But he,
yeah,
go on.
I was going to say you couldn't pigeonhole him when you look at the goals he scored. The one that always springs to mind for me was the one against Bournemouth, I think in the 6-3, where he scored in like the first 30 seconds, I think it was, but he just
Held it in.
And it's like he could score every conceivable type of goal he could score.
Yeah. I remember he was probably his last season at Goodison, if memory serves, before he went on to Man United. He was for a long time leading the race for the top scorer.
Yeah.
Leading the race in the charts. And right at the end, he got pipped by Harry Kane. Harry Kane finished on 29 and Ron was on 26. But again, he was playing in a good Everton team. But it wasn't a team that was going for Champions League or even winning the title. So to come up with that kind of goal record, he was a pure finisher. He's a pure striker, and it was just a shame that first of all he let himself down whenever he went away and did those interviews in very typical "I'm a Belgian international."
It's weird.
Style.
Yeah,
we're all very familiar with that. But also that semi-final against Manchester United, where if he had 2 or 3 really big chances and fluffed his lines.
Yeah.
You'd just put 1 or 2 of them away. Everton would have been in another final.
I know that sort of changes everything, that doesn't it? If he's on form that day.
The penalty saved, and to be fair, it's a decent save from De Gea. But there are a few other ones I thought he should have scored. And obviously that was another crushing blow for them to have played so well.
Yeah.
Got back into the game, and then right at the end, with a patchwork side, with players effectively playing on one leg. Given how injured they were, Mo Besic at right back, bizarrely, which I never ever wanted to see again. They were so unlucky, and it was kind of a typical blow. But I think we have to remember that to me was Everton on the up.
Yeah,
it was Everton with loads of lads that looked like they were going to go on to be the next big thing. Didn't always quite get there in some of those cases, but they had so much potential and was so exciting going forward. And just a shame the way it worked out. But you just have to remember, like, as a pure goal scorer, he's the best I've seen.
Yeah, 100%. I think probably for me as well. Yeah, I think it's safe to say he is. He was, and it was a massive thing to get him in on loan again that season, and a huge thing to buy him. Yeah, good choice for loan player there. Very good. Martinez didn't do much wrong in that summer, did he? It was
no. It subsequently unravelled, but that's the Everton story, isn't it?
Every time, yeah, being conflicts in one game usually as well.
Yeah.
We'll move on to your final one then. Your favourite toffees. Then you got 2.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it to you to go. You want to go with first?
I'll go with Andy Burnham first, who, for anyone that doesn't know, is the mayor of Greater Manchester, big Evertonian, attends games, I think is it the Bullens, the paddock around there, whenever he can, whenever the opportunity lets him. And the part of this, I think, is, first of all, his role as a voice, not for Merseyside as such, but the north of England.
Yeah.
And how effective he has been at doing that. I think probably he's the most popular politician in the country right now, if you look at polling.
Well, he's like a real opposition, isn't he? Because he will. I know it's a bit of a north-south thing the way he does it,
Yeah.
but he will hold the government to account and disagree with things.
Yeah.
It's like what the rest of the Labour Party aren't currently doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, that's why he's slightly on the outside at the moment. He's obviously not an MP as such. He's a mayor of Greater Manchester and doing a very good job by all accounts. So he does that, and obviously credit him for all of that. But I think more recently, because of his profile, using that to really try and help the Everton cause with the Premier League points deduction and the appeal. And the tide may be turning from what was initially, we've been done 10 points here and everyone will agree with the 10-point deduction if you're not an Evertonian, to actually a lot of people coming around to the idea that maybe this is disproportionate. I think people actually play a big role in that, because when it gets to a political level, when it makes headlines and papers and on the TV, you get that cut through, don't you?
yeah.
So he's done that brilliantly, and he's made a lot of excellent points. Some of which we'd covered ourselves with regards to kind of, not to relitigate the whole thing, but the lack of a sanctions policy and how arbitrary it all seemed to be, and the disproportionality of the sanction.
He spelled that out really well, didn't he? He like really put it into black and white really well.
Because he's a smart communicator as such, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I think that's very helpful for Everton's cause. And a worried people who you'd want to be worried by it. So fair play to him for that. And then the other one, I couldn't split these two because, and for very different reasons. But the other one is Jodie Comer, the famous actor. Another case, Liverpool born, Liverpool raised, gone on to do amazing things.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that her dad, Jimmy, is there as the Everton first team masseur. It's about as blue and about as scouse as they come. I can remember coming out of Finch Farm a few weeks ago, and he was there in his full Everton kit on the way out, whistling. I think it was Spirit of the Blues or something.
I've just got this image that's played on loop at Finch Farm. Now that's all they hear.
Yeah. I hope so. But it's often said about Everton that it feels a really real kind of family club, because when you get to Finch Farm, most of the people you encounter, long-term staff, are Evertonians. The kind of the doorman, the receptionist, people like Jimmy Comer, Jimmy Martin previously, all those guys, and there's that kind of Evertonian core there, and they're almost kind of they impart the cultural knowledge on new people coming into the club. They're the ones that are kind of almost driving Evertonian standards day in day out, which is really interesting as a concept, and one that I know a lot of people I've spoken to have actually mentioned before. But obviously he works at the club. He's an Evertonian. Jodie, because of that, grew up an Evertonian as well. And I think she's spoken a bit before how she supports the Blues and wants them to do well. So again, getting the message out there, it
is, isn't it? Yeah, on a massive, on a world stage, really, that isn't it? And,
it is.
You know, she's a good ambassador. She's not someone you look at and you cringe. You think, oh God, but she's the real deal.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that plus the ability, the obvious ability as an actor. You know, I watched Killing Eve throughout.
Yeah.
Started to get a little bit tired of it by the end. I think the early
ones are brilliant. Yeah.
Series was some of the best TV in a while.
Yeah.
Started to fade a little bit in terms of the plot line and everything else. But what a show it was.
Yeah.
and created by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I think is exceptional as well, as somebody in that field. So I mean, like, it's two
And
ambassadors.
completely different once you did the COVID thing with Stephen Graham. Like
Yeah,
completely different vibe. Yeah, she is something else.
that was, I mean, that very important for other reasons, and just, I suppose, raising awareness and bringing to light some of the harsh conditions people have kind of had to work in over that period. And that, again, that cut through everywhere. Like my girlfriend's family lived down south, and they were watching that, and that, probably some of what was very close to the bone in that they wouldn't have known
Yeah.
so much, because our media hasn't always done a great job of bringing some of the inadequacies to light,
Yeah.
in certain cases. But no, I just think it was another great piece of TV, another fantastic role for her, and kind of a versatility in her acting as well. So all of that, and I think she was the year below me at school. I went to SFX, which is in Walton Village. That was an all boys comprehensive, and then close by had St Julie's, which was the all girls.
St. Julie's is the most Liverpool sounding school I've ever
It
heard.
is. It is. Said in the Liverpool accent as well. It is. But I believe so. She would have been the year below me at school. I believe she grew up and was effectively best mates with, Katarina Johnson Thompson,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
heptathlete. And it's just like, you go through this, and like, just this one year at a Liverpool Catholic girls comprehensive. You've got Jodie Comer, one of the best actors around, and the world champion heptathlete, and in the same friendship group. It's like, it's absolutely remarkable. Like,
That is
statistically, absolutely, like, statistically, if you kind of manage to put a number on that, I bet it'd be so unlikely, but amazing nonetheless.
Yeah, two good choices there again for your Blues. As I say, you couldn't split between them, and I can see why. Good choices right across the board there, Paddy. Cheers for coming on.
Nice one.
Take it easy. Speak to you soon.
You too, mate.